Shalom and welcome again to Expert on the Spot. I'm Sharon Sionov. I'm head of the Israel Justice Center, Law Clinics for Social Responsibility, here at the Faculty of Law, Hebrew University. I'm here today to answer questions that I've been asked about the work of the legal clinics. The first question was asked by Polly about the rights of renters in Jerusalem. And I have to say this is a very good question. You know, Israel does not have rent control of any kind. And so the rent is something that is between the landlord and the people who rent the apartment. There is a rent law that specifies the rights and obligations of landlords and of people who rent apartments. But most of the time, there are specific contracts between both sides. What I would recommend when it comes to rent is to specify in the contract how is the rent to be for the next year. To specify how you can addition the rent, how much time the landlord has to give you before the rent gets higher, like a 60 days notice before the end of the contract that the rent will be higher the next year, plus limiting the rent to 10% increase and not more in the contract. Another thing I would recommend is to make sure that the contract has this standard specification as to what the landlord has to repair. We do give these services to students in the university and to other people. Mostly students are better at dealing with the contracts. There are standard contracts with the students' union at the university, plus we hand out standard contracts to students who ask for them. The next question is from Shira, who's asking about divorce in Israel and about the Rabbani courts and the civil courts in Israel. Well, Shira, this is a very political question because we don't really have control about legislation in those fields because the political system in Israel is such that there is pressure from ultra-Orthodox parties to the Knesset not to change the legislation. Having said that, it is still, the situation today is a lot better than it used to be before the law that deals with civil family courts in Israel. Now you can separate the question of custody over children from the actual divorce. What we encourage women to do when they come for advice in the legal clinics, what we advise the women to do is, first of all, not go to the Rabbani court and go to the civil court with custody over children and alimony payments. Once you start this process in the civil court, in family courts, you have the upper hand in the proceeding. It's true that you can only get divorced through Rabbani court, even if you weren't married in Israel, even if you were married somewhere else, in a civil court abroad, you still have to get divorced in Israel. If you're registered as married, you have to get divorced in a Rabbani court. This is a crucial issue, as you stated in your question, for women, because women are the main sufferers from the halakha law, but the Israeli law is a lot more flexible towards women, and custody and alimony are almost automatic to women in Israel unless it is stated and proved that the woman cannot raise children. Now, with the legal clinics, we find that the main issue is having these women advised and have the proper knowledge before entering this proceeding. And so we do workshops with the Women's Empowerment Clinic. We do workshops that deal a lot with the rights of women in marriage and deal a lot with violence in the family, and give the women the tools to decide what to do and where to go and not be scared of the process of the Rabbani. It's not only, by the way, the Jewish courts, it's also the Sharai courts. It's all the religious courts in Israel that are a problem with women's rights. And so if a woman knows in advance what her rights are and where to go when there are problems, and the right to be represented in divorce proceedings. This gives her the knowledge that she needs before, and then she takes the right actions. The next question is from Lily about the legal clinic's assistance to Sudanese refugees in Israel. Well, Lily, the refugees are not only Sudanese, they're from Africa in general. Plus, there are other people from other places that are considered refugees. What we mostly do is work with NGOs dealing with refugees, like Asaf and others. And most cases that we get are with children and youth. The main issues that we've dealt with and dealing with now is of status in Israel, of not being held in prison somewhere or in a camp, and establishing the right to be in Israel and the status of a refugee. Another is education. So we work with schools where kids that are alone in Israel from Sudan and other countries in Africa are placed in. Guardianship issues, educational issues, and status are the main that we deal with. We've received some questions from the Friends organization from all over the world. And first of all, I would like to thank the Friends for asking the questions. The first one was a description of different clinics that we have at the center. For a list and information about the different clinics, I would recommend our website that has this information. We were asked about success stories from the clinic and changes in legislation that we've accomplished. The Israeli legislation is pretty good on most issues, and we usually strive for a specific change in an existing law, and most of the changes that we want to make is through the Supreme Court and through judges and verdicts, and not through the changes in legislation. Having said that, we sit on Knesset committees, and entering a Knesset committee on a regular basis is not an easy task, but clinic people, students and supervisors sit on Knesset committees dealing with children, with women, with general changes in legislation, with workers' rights, and we attend all committees, and we submit opinion papers and changes related papers, and a lot of the time we are listened to and we are asked to do more work for the Knesset members, for them to act upon our demands and our suggestions. Another issue is the rights of people with civil debts. The legislation in Israel has been changed for the best for these people, and now there are no civil arrests in Israel. This was changed in the past year, and the clinic was involved. But what happened now is that the Bar Association with the debt collecting authority would like to change that situation back, and put people in jail for civil debts, even in small amounts of money. We have many success stories, mostly concerning the regular citizen who's disadvantaged in most cases. I'll take two examples of very recent verdicts that we got. One was of a newcomer to Israel who was sued by a cellular company for debts. He was signed on a contract that he did not realize what was written because he didn't read Hebrew. And the debt was huge. And we got the debt canceled, plus he got compensation and some money back in the amount of 6,000 shekels. That is 2 months' salary for him. So this is an achievement of the Law and Immigration Clinic. Another great achievement is in the field of sexual harassment. Usually you need to hurt the pocket of the employer in order to prevent similar actions on his part in the past, and in order to have other employers beware of the courts. We got a compensation over 150,000 shekels for a low-income worker who worked in a kitchen and was sexually harassed by her boss. This woman had no bank account before this, and she's a single mother of 3 children. So this is something we're not only proud of, but very happy for the client. As I said, there are many, many other examples in different fields. We deal with over 1,000 cases a year. Most of them don't even come to court, and we get what we want before the legal proceedings. With over 1,000 cases, there are many success stories, but still we have a long way to go. I was asked about what our students do in the future, whether they go into the field of law. Well, approximately 90% of the students at the law faculty in general go into the field of law. The clinics provide skills, and this is important for students who want to practice law. Many of the students go to large law firms in Israel and are going to be leaders in that field. A large amount of students from the clinic also go to public service. They go to human rights organizations, they go to government offices as lawyers, they go to public defenders and so forth. These students want to be leaders either politically or legally in the public service field in Israel. I can say that we have many students who would like to participate in the work of the clinics. Once they become lawyers, they would like to do pro bono work. And this is something that we are working on now, on getting connected to our graduates that already have the knowledge and the sensitivity that you have to deal with disempowered communities. We are very proud of our graduates, and we have approximately 150 a year for 7 years now. This is a large population of committed and human rights-oriented lawyers, and I hope to make this a movement in Israel. This connects us to another question that I was asked, a question that I really like because this is something I like to plan ahead all the time. My personal goals and the goals of the center, which are basically the same. My dream is to have, and this is something that we can make happen, my dream is to have the clinics as a part of a pro bono movement and have the clinics activate drop-in centers for adults and for youth in the city of Jerusalem and then in other places in Israel. A drop-in that will be activated by students and student supervisor and by graduates of the legal clinics that would do pro bono work within this center with the clinics and provide free of charge advice, free of charge representation for disadvantaged people, for the newcomers in Israel, for the disempowered people that need this good legal advice. We don't like to give poor services for poor people. We want the service to be as good as possible, to be life-changing for these people, and to have a social movement as something that would grow from this legal movement for a better life in Israel for all citizens and all people who live here, regardless of where they come from. Refugees, Arabs, Jews, newcomers to the country, children, women, and everyone else. I would really like our graduates and our current students to be a part of this movement, and I think social change can come from these people. So these are our goals: to give services to more people, to have more students involved in the clinics. I would like to see every student in the faculty go through the clinics. Right now we're close to half, and we have more students who would like to come on board, and I think that with the right education we can have everybody involved. Thank you for your questions. It was a pleasure to answer them. If you have any more questions, or you need or want any kind of information, please go to our website and you can contact us by emails to the clinical center and to me personally. We would love to have you involved and answer your questions. Shalom from the law faculty here in Jerusalem.